Hello ladies and gents, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be looking at a PlayStation 5 which has been sent in. This has been sent in by a customer because it's been water damaged, and this I believe is going to be the first water damaged PlayStation 5 that I've seen. Not sure if there's any more videos on YouTube, but as far as I know there isn't. I haven't seen any. I could be wrong, I'll double check and leave it down below. Whether there is or not, but I haven't seen any liquid damaged PlayStation 5s being repaired on YouTube yet, so hopefully this is going to be something new for us. So this has been sent in and apparently it's been water damaged, but I haven't tested it yet. I do see a little bit of a sign of some liquid just here, or something being spilt around here, but I'm not sure where the liquid damage is going to be because, like I said, I've never come across it, at least on the PlayStation 5. Hopefully it's going to be something we can fix. This is a PlayStation 5 digital, and obviously water damage isn't covered under warranty with Sony, so a lot of people will say that basically you can send it back to Sony and all of this, but water damage is never covered. So we're going to get into this repair, but if you are new to the channel and you like this type of content, I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and turn on the bell notifications, and that way you don't miss any future videos. Starting to see a lot more next gen consoles now, and they are pretty fun to work on. And if you want to support me as well, if you want to help me to buy cool merch like this hoodie from my mate Vince, head over to Twitch and become a Twitch Prime subscriber. And if you link an Amazon Prime account, it's completely free for you to do, and it does massively help out the channel. So with that being said, let's get into this repair. So the first thing I'm going to do is plug it in and just see what actually happens. I need to get a general idea of what's going on, and I can pretty much guarantee that the customer or someone else is going to have tried to plug this in even after it's been liquid damaged, because that's what people do. So plugging it in isn't going to hurt nothing. So let's just move my IPA out of the way and my mate Vince merch cup, because I'm addicted to my mate Vince merch. Talking of merch, I do have merch of my own. Oh wow. Oh, that went bang. So plugging it in isn't going to hurt nothing. Yeah, let's not plug that in again. Oh, that could have been nasty. That was the power supply that's just gone boom. And yeah, that could have got nasty. So something's just blown inside there. Let's not do that again, okay? Anyway, back to the subject. Talking of merch, I've just started to release merch of my own. There'll be a link in the video description to that. Kind of lost my train of thought there, but never mind. That is definitely going to make the highlight reel. Yeah, let's get it apart. Let's see what's going on. I reckon the power supply's just gone kaput. And yeah, what can you do? So let's get it apart, shall we? So now that it's lying on its side, I can take off the front cover. It's not been opened by the look of it. Oh, hang on. Yes, it has. Never mind. Alright, well. Yeah, that's been opened. Alright, that came off way too easily. It's fine. Don't worry. We do have some scratches around here as well, which means that someone's definitely been in. That definitely wasn't me. It come off way too easily. Okay. Let's try and get this apart without killing ourselves, shall we? So, I released a video this evening, and a few people was asking me what this new mat is. I bought this new mat off AliExpress, and I haven't actually tested it yet. So, I've done a couple of little jobs on it, but I haven't used a heat gun on it or anything like that, so I can't give you a recommendation on it yet. So, bear with me, let me test it, let me put it through its paces, and then I'll let people know whether or not it's going to be worth buying. Cost me about £15 off AliExpress, I think. Something along those lines. Not sure if that was including tax or not. So, let's get this apart. That was rather fun. I think I already know what the title of this video is going to be. And I've got to use a bit of clickbait. I'm sorry. I'm going to apologise in advance. I've got to use a bit of clickbait on this. Why? Because it brings in clicks. It brings in views, okay? Don't hate for the clickbait. So I'm going to get the power supply out. I do have some spare power supplies, but it would be interesting to see what's gone on with this one. That's if it even is a power supply. I could be way off base. But basically we need to get these two screws out of here. So I'll fast forward through this. I'll get these 643 screws out. And yeah, I'll pick it up when I'm ready. Right, okay. So we're inside. And yeah, we've definitely got some signs of liquid damage around here. Now, if that power supply has just popped on me, it could be a case where it hasn't done too much damage. The question is, what did it do before that power supply popped? How bad did it get before the power supply popped? But yeah, we definitely got liquid damage here. Makes you wonder how it gets in. Must have been a lot of liquid. A lot of liquid. A lot of liquid. Did. Alright, I'll stop now. Anyway, let's pop that off there for starts. And where did that screw come from? So we've got a fair bit around the edge of the board here, which I will try and clean up as best as I possibly can. The trick to cleaning this up is going to be to heat it up. It's going to need a new CR2032 battery. But other than that, I'm not really seeing a whole lot. Or at least not to the naked eye. I will pop it under the microscope, of course, because that is the right thing to do. So let's go under the scope. So you can see we've got definite signs of liquid ingress around here. And that's kind of the story all the way around the edge of the board. But if it's just around the edge on the ground plane, I'm not that worried about that. But the main thing I'm interested in here is any signs of corrosion around the actual components. So around the chips, around the capacitors, the coils, the resistors, the APU, etc, etc. And I'm not seeing anything. Not on this side of the board anyway. Actually, a little bit there. Superficial. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything on this side of the board from what I can tell, other than the fact that we've got some corrosion on the battery terminal. I might actually need to replace that battery terminal. It's definitely corroded on the actual solder points. If I pop this battery off, I'm assuming it's going to be very, very corroded underneath. Actually, it's not that corroded. It is corroded, but it's not that bad. So definitely got a very weak joint there, though. So yeah, this entire battery connector, like the battery housing, whatever you want to call it, cradle, caddy, I don't know, friggin' know. That's going to need replacing, I think. I think it's a little bit too corroded underneath to be able to justify just a clean up on that. So I think the best option for this is to just replace the entire thing. But the battery itself, yeah, that can't be reused. Definitely not. But these cost pennies. So on the back of the board, yeah, I don't think I'm going to find anything on this board at all, to be honest with you. Yeah, it's completely clean on this side. I can visibly see that it's very, very clean. Merch coffee break. Cheers, Vince. So, first thing I'm going to check, I'm going to be in continuity mode here, and I'm going to check the 12 volt rail. So I'm going to pop one probe on ground, and the other probe anywhere along this big fat trace here. Nope. What's my diode reading on this? So we're going to swap the lead, red probe on ground and black probe on the trace, and we get 0.438. That's a good reading. Cool. Let's go back into continuity mode, or the official term, beepity beep 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 mode. That is the proper engineer's term. Let's check F7002. This is a 5 volt rail. No short on either of those pads. How about the fuse? The fuse is good. Let's check the 3.3 volt rail. That's good. We've got a 5 volt rail just above here. That's no short. Another 3.3 volt. No short. Another 5 volt rail. No short. Another 12 volt rail. No short. 1.1 volt rail. No short. Okay, excellent. Another 5 volt. No short. Either 2 volt. No short. 12 volt. No short. 1.4 volt. Or 1.5 maybe. No short. And I think this is 1.5 volt as well. No short. Okay. Not getting any shorts on the most common areas that go bad. That's good to see. So, honestly, I don't think there's going to be anything wrong with this board. I don't see anywhere where the liquid could have hit that could have caused any damage. I believe that the main issue is going to be this connector here and the power supply. So the first thing I'm going to do is change this connector. So I'm going to just add some flux here to these solder joints. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to flood this with some low melt solder. The reason I'm using low melt solder is because we're working with a plastic, well, housing. So I'm going to flood it with low melt solder, and that's going to make it easier for me to remove this connector. Might be difficult to actually get a contact with the board. Okay, that works. So that loosens up there when or does it? I don't know. Probably not. It's going to be difficult to actually get a contact with the pad on the board itself because the connector itself covers the entire pad. There we go. Okay, so that there is done on that side. Let's flood this side as well. I don't mind melting the connector, but it's just easier to remove. It's a big connector as well, or a big bracket housing. I don't know what I'm going to call it, a bracket. If I call it something wrong, well, sue me. I don't know what they're called. Cradle? I don't know. I'm going to stop whinging over it. It's the battery holder. There we go. Okay, so that's removed. Nice and simple, nice and straightforward. Next task is going to be to just clean up this area. So I've got to get rid of the low melt solder because we don't want to solder a new connector with low melt soldering on the board. The reason being is that it does melt at around about 70 degrees Celsius, and we don't want to leave that on the board because the console will get hotter than 70 degrees Celsius. So we're going to use some solder braid. Get some nice clean pads. There we go, perfect. So now I'll just heat up this area. And the reason I heat it up is purely because I want to make it easier to clean up the flux. And warm flux is a lot easier to clean than dry hard flux because it's more of a liquid form. So I'm going to give this a nice good clean here. There we go. So you never want to solder on top of corrosion, which is why I wicked it away as well. If you solder on top of corrosion, then the corrosion is just going to affect the board again in the future. So that is a big no-no. The next task is just to prep this area ready for a new battery terminal. So this time I'm going to use leaded solder, 6337 Kester, the best stuff that you can get. Expensive, but it's the best you can get. It's like Gillette, but for soldering. So we're just going to add a little bit of solder here to each of these pads. There we go. Beautiful. Now I'm going to grab a donor board. So I've got a PS4 Pro motherboard here. And like I said, these are all pretty standard connectors for these CR2032s, especially on the PlayStations. They might be different on other boards, but on the PlayStations they are pretty standard connectors and they use the same one for each one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up from the bottom. You can see just on this little gap here that I've got my heat gun. And I'm just heating up from underneath at 480 degrees Celsius on this donor board at 40% airflow. I'm not putting heat on from the top because I don't want to melt this connector. The only way that I'm going to be able to safely remove it without using low melt solder is to heat up from underneath and let the heat transfer through the board. Shouldn't take too long. I could have done that with the PS5, but I'm not sure what components are on the other side. I haven't actually checked. But I can solder this back onto the PS5 without using hot air anyway. Let's focus on this side, because this is ground, so that's going to take longer to remove. Just going to get somewhere to grip it. Okay, and that's started to lift up. Let's move over to the other side. There we go. Perfect. That came off absolutely perfectly. So I've got that in my tweezers there. And you can actually see that these are marked. So you've got negative on the right hand side there and positive there. It is actually marked. It's faint, but it is there. And what I need to do is just solder this on. So you can see here, this fits absolutely perfect. And you want to make sure that you get the polarity right as well. Now I could use hot air and just heat it up from the bottom, just like I did to remove this. But it's probably going to be easier just to solder it like this. Might be easier to get some solder and add some to the tip of the iron. There we go. And then if I do the same on the other side. Just try and keep it flat to the board. Just press down on that connector as I'm doing it. And that is nice and solid. So now we should, in theory, have a nice working connector or battery terminal. Just clean this up. I'm going to scrub it with IPA and a toothbrush just to get that flux from underneath. So let's take a brand new second-hand battery because I don't actually have any new ones. I'm going to test the voltage on there. We should get 3 volts. And as long as I get 3 volts, then I'll use it. So we have positive there, negative there. 2.99, too low for my liking. 3.053, perfect. That will do very nicely indeed. And there we go. So now, do we get, if we pop a probe on ground and a probe just here, we do. We do get a little bit of voltage drop, but yeah, that's perfectly normal. Alright, I'm happy with that. That works for me. So I think for now, the board, apart from, you know, maybe giving it a scrub around the edge, is pretty much done. So that's what I'm going to do next. Just going to give it a little bit of a scrub around the edge of the board. Try and get rid of a little bit of this residue, whatever it is. And if I can't get rid of it, at least neutralise it with IPA. Okay, let's just have a look inside the ports. They look good, to be honest. Okay, I'm happy with that. So just gave it a little scrub just to get rid of any residue from around there. The other side is fine. So that IPA will dry in the next 5 minutes or so while I'm just looking into the power supply. So here's a housing that I made earlier. This has got a working power supply in it. It's a digital edition housing. I'm not going to be replacing the customer's housing, obviously, but just for testing purposes, this is quick and dirty. And it's going to allow me to test it very, very quickly just to see if the console at least turns on, right? Because I don't really need to be swapping parts and things like that. This is literally my test housing that I use. And I know that the power supply and the front panel are both good. So let's just plug it in and hope it doesn't blow my power supply. You ready? Okay, that seems, well, it did seem fine. I might have killed my cable. Ooh. Oh, there we go. That's a bit stiff. I might have damaged my cable. Oh, that sucks because these are really good cables. Oh. Interesting. Interesting, we're getting no power. Yeah, I think that's taken out the board. Wow. Whatever that pop was, it's taken out the board as well. Oh, man. Let's just double check, make sure we get 12 volts here. I sure as hell hope this power supply is working. It wasn't faulty last time I used it. But then again, it was made by Sony. Or on behalf of Sony. We get 12 volts. Do we get 3.3 volts here at this power button? We do. Shorting out that button does nothing. So we're missing a power rail here. We get 5 volts up here. We get 3.3 volts there. We are not getting 5 volts here. But I don't know if we're meant to get 5 volts there until we turn it on. 5 volts. 3.3. Okay. Yeah, that could have taken out the safe bridge. Oh, man. Well, I've got another one here. This one I know 100% was working last time I checked it. Yeah, it's not the power supply, that's for sure. That's not the main issue, at least. I wonder what that's taken out. Alright. Well, that does absolutely suck. Alright, let's go under the scope a minute. So, one area I am interested in is around this Wimbond IC. So, this Wimbond IC has been known to cause no power after power surges. So, I could potentially try and replace that before I do anything else. It's going to be the easiest thing to replace. I don't know how to successfully test the Wimbond IC, so basically what I do is just remove it and replace it. It's basically the BIOS chip, but it has been known, and I have discovered personally, that it does cause no power. So the first port of call for me, given the fact that we've got all the voltage rails there, as far as I can tell, the first port of call for me is going to be to replace this chip. So I will just pop that chip to one side. they're not married to the board, but obviously if I can't get the board to work and I can't guarantee that that chip works, and I don't want to use one of my own working chips just in case, because they are very limited supply. Okay, so I've got a donor chip at the ready. Just replace that solder with some leaded, mix it all up. Going to lower the melting temperature and allow me to solder this chip easier. There we go. So like I said, the reason that I'm just replacing that chip is because it has been known to blow after things like a power surge or a failed power supply. And that's something I discovered myself a while back. But it's not an issue that comes up that often. So let's give that a whirl. And I'm going to use my own power supply, one that I know is working. I'm surprised that didn't blow the fuse on my cable, to be honest. No, that's not the cause. It's a bit odd. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to fast forward through this just while I'm hunting around the board. And there are some signs that they may have ended up with some liquid around the APU actually, which I didn't see before. Yeah, some very minor signs that it has hit the APU. That's not good. But I am still going to hunt around and just see what I can find, see if I can figure anything out. I'll fast forward through it, and if I do find anything, then I will pick up the video. Well, I'll pick up the video anyway, but you know, I'm not going to just sit here and hunt through live because it takes too long. Yeah, I'm not finding anything at all, especially on that side of the board. I honestly don't know. I'm not seeing anything. I am seeing a little bit of a sign that we may have had some liquid damage around the APU. Unfortunately, we cannot, well, we can buy the stencils for them, but I'm still waiting for it to come from China. And yeah, if we've had liquid damage underneath the APU, then reboiling it isn't really going to be an option at the minute. And I don't think it will be viable anyway, because there's a chance that the APU is knackered, and there's also a chance that the power supply is knackered. So yeah, honestly, I don't know what to think. Let me just see what happens when I hook it up to a bench power supply. So I want to try and figure out what kind of current is being drawn from the bench supply using 12 volts. I know I don't have a short on the 12 volt rail, but we should see some sort of a boot sequence of around about 300 milliamps when we first initialize power on the board. So that's what I'm going to look for. So I've got the test probes hooked up to the bench power supply. And I'm going to pop one probe on ground, positive probe on 12 volt, and we do get a boot sequence of 0.008 amps. There's a power rail not turning on here. One of the power rails is not turning on. Where on earth is that going to be? Let's just test for a reference power sequence on this one. Yeah, we get a 300 milliamp current draw on that one, so something's not turning on. And it could be the APU, it could be the south bridge. Without schematics, I'm never going to find that, I don't think. Yeah, something's not enabling. Alright, let's just check for some voltages again. See if I've missed anything. Let's just go through them all. I don't think that 5-volt line enables until we power it on. 12 volt. 12 volt. 12. Very odd.